Hi, this is Andre, and thanks for checking out Synthisophy. Synthisophy is scientifically integrating the wisdoms of history, based on fact and truth, into our present culture. Today we're going to be taking a look at Chapter 16, Skinwalkers. Note that the following information are direct quotes from the book Tribe on Homecoming and Belonging by Sebastian Junger. Also note that for earlier chapters, this one and the next one here in Synthisophy are primarily based on information presented by Mr. Junger. It's a very powerful read, with relationships and conclusions at the end drawn by myself. Should I ever find a publisher, I hope that Mr. Junger would allow me to refer to his work in return for a percentage of any proceeds that are made from the publication of Synthisophy, should that ever happen. So, here are some quotes from Mr. Junger. The ultimate act of disaffiliation isn't littering or fraud, of course, but violence against your own people. When the Navajo Nation, the Dene, in their language, were rounded up and confined to a reservation in the 1860s, a terrifying phenomenon became prominent in their culture. The warrior skills that had protected the Dene for thousands of years were no longer relevant in this dismal new era. And people worried that those same skills would now be turned inward, against society. That strengthened their belief in what were known as Skinwalkers, or Yin el-Dushi in their language. Virtually every culture in the world has its version of the Skinwalker myth. In Europe, for example, they're called werewolves, literally meaning man-wolf in Old English. The myth addresses a fundamental fear in human society, that you can defend against external enemies, but still remain vulnerable to one lone man-ban in your midst. Modern Anglo-American culture here in the U.S. doesn't recognize the Skinwalker threat, but has its own version. Starting in the early 1980s, the frequency of rampage shootings in the United States began to rise more and more rapidly until it doubled around 2006. Rampages are usually defined as attacks where people are randomly targeted and 4 or more are killed in one place, usually shot to death by a lone gunman. As such, those crimes conform almost exactly to the kind of threat that the Navajo seem most to fear on the reservation. Murder and mayhem committed by an individual who has rejected all social bonds and attacks people at their most vulnerable and unprepared. For modern society, that would mean not in their log hogans, but in movie theaters, schools, shopping malls, places of worship, or simply walking down the street. End quote. Data from the Congressional Research Service as seen here, known as Congress's think tank, describes mass shootings as those in which shooters select victims somewhat indiscriminately, with 4 or more shot and killed in one incident, excluding the perpetrators, at a public place, excluding gang-related killings and those done with a profit motive. Posted on this page down below, which I'll show you in a second, is a list of skinwalkers and their shooting rampages in the USA over the last 30 years. Note that from 1990 to 1999, there were 8 mass shootings in the US. From 2000 to 2009, there were 9. From 2010 through 2019, there were 37. Why does it appear that over the last 10 years our society is generating a sharp increase in skinwalkers? Individuals committing murder and mayhem who have rejected almost all social bonds and attack people at their most vulnerable and unprepared? Perhaps it's because, as Junger stated, this shows just how completely detribalized this country has become. Our neurological, genetic predisposition, the tribal and warrior ethos, all for one and one for all, is no longer relevant in modern life. As individuals in modern society, it appears we are now very far from our evolutionary roots. For details on mass shootings, check it out at Synthisophy.